with the universal prayer. O hidden life, vibrant in every atom, O hidden light, shining in every creature, O hidden love, embracing all in oneness, may each who feels himself as one with thee know he is also one with every other. So, friends, Dr. Nagesh is a national lecturer of Indian Section Theosophical Society. He is presently working as professor and head of Department of Public Health Dentistry in Dayanand Sagar College of Dental Sciences in Bangalore. And he has so much that we can talk about him with so much publications and books and so much of work that he has done in his field and received several awards that we would be really it will take me a long time uh, just to just to tell you about him. So I would skip all that and request Dr. Nagesh to kindly speak on this subject, comprehending reality. Thank you very much. Dr. Nagesh, please, sir.
Thank you, Mathurji. Thank you very much. ईश्वरः परमः कृष्ण सच्चिदानन्दविग्रह अनादिरादिर्गोविन्द सर्वकारणकारणम्. I render my prostrations at the feet of rootless root of all and the causeless cause of all. I place my salutations to the feet of all the liberated masters, and I render my salutations to the divinity which is inherent and innate in all of us. Thank you very much, dear brothers and sisters. First of all, I like to thank Mathurji for being in communication with me for some time and giving me an opportunity to share few of my views and thoughts about reality with you people. I thank the office bearers of Delhi Federation and Shankar Lodge for organizing this webinar program as such. So, the topic for today's deliberation is comprehending reality. Um, I believe this particular topic is a really very intriguing topic. Basically, because reality is nothing but Sat. In Sat Chit Ananda, what we call Satchidananda, Sat stands for truth, and reality is nothing but truth or Sat, a very profound principle on which we are trying to deliberate. And the topic actually is clearly reflecting that we are on the path of understanding the reality, understanding the Sat component of Satchidananda. It's a very serious topic, a highly spiritual topic, but I like to bring in a lot of science also in this deliberation, provided you have that working knowledge of science and fundamental principles of science. I believe you know the basics of science. Probably I'll be using a bit of physics and a bit of chemistry in order to make you understand this particular topic. You have heard of Brahma Sutra. Brahma Sutra opens with a capsule, and the capsule says Atatho Brahma Jignasya. I'll repeat it. Atatho Brahma Jignasya. What it means is, now let us develop curiosity for Brahma. That is what is the meaning of this Sanskrit verse. Now let us develop curiosity for Brahma, otherwise Brahman. That means to say, we need to curiously study, try to understand, try to experience the Brahman. What is this Brahman or Brahma? Brahma is the being, is that which exists. What all exists in this universe can be called as Brahman. What is that which exists? That is the next question. If I say what all exists is Brahman, what is that which exists? What exists is the reality. Whatever exists is called as the reality. J. Krishnamurti, in his many talks, said, what is the reality. What is capital letter I and capital letter S, that is uppercase. What is called reality. That means to say, whatever exists in this universe truly is called as reality. I was just going through the scriptures from Vedanta, and in Vedanta it is said that which is real, no matter what, is called absolutely real. That which is always real, no matter what, is called absolutely real. So real is something which is the ultimate truth, and that truth always existed and always existing and always going to exist in future. That means to say, it is a permanent principle. It is an eternal principle. And that's why it is called as absolutely real. And Vedanta also says that which is always unreal, no matter what, is called absolutely unreal. Again, I repeat, according to Vedanta, that which is always unreal, no matter what, is called absolutely unreal. Real is called the Sat, and unreal is called as the Asat. Let us just take an example in order to understand what is Sat and what is Asat. A simple example from day-to-day life. A pot, a pitcher, a vase. They are all different names. They look different, but the basic stuff is the same. Whether it's a pot, whether it's a pitcher, whether it's a vase, whether it is any container made of mud, they are all different names. They are all earthenwares of different shape, different size, different configuration, but they look different also, but the basic stuff is the same. What is the basic stuff? They are all earthenwares, so the basic stuff is a lump of clay. A lump of clay is the ultimate truth. Things are in different shape, so words are different. You may call a pot, you may call a pitcher, you may call a vase. That's different. But all of them are fundamentally made of clay. Clay is the Sat or the truth. These shapes, these forms, they are unreal because they are there and they will disappear. You break a mud pot. When you break a mud pot, the pot may lose its form and it may disappear. But the mud in the pot will get integrated with the mud in the soil and it becomes one. So nothing happened to the mud. Mud did not disappear. What disappeared was the form. The form of the pot completely disappeared. So that's why we say things are in different shape, so words are different. I call one container as pot, another container as pitcher, one another container as vase. Things differ, the words differ, but the lump of clay is ultimately the basic stuff which remains. Brahma Jignasya, I was saying, Athato Brahma Jignasya. Let us develop curiosity to understand that real or Brahma. Brahma Jignasya is a curiosity to know about Brahma or to understand Brahma. That was the initial motive of all religions and philosophies. Every religion and every philosophy that originated on this earth had a fundamental requisite and need to know about Brahma or the reality. The reality is the fundamental stuff or the basic stuff or the substratum of the whole universe. And such a substratum is only real. The rest, all forms are unreal, otherwise called asat. But what happened? Although religions and philosophies had that lofty ambition of comprehending the Brahman or the reality, on their way to Jignasya, they strayed too far away because of the baser instincts of humans. Human beings, after all, human beings carry some base instincts. The base instincts of human beings drove the religions and philosophies clearly out of the path of realizing the reality. And that was the precise situation when science jumped in, science pitched in order to comprehend the reality. The beautiful aspect of science is never driven by any ego. Science looks for truth and only truth. And science depends only on research and investigation. Hence, modern science, with its own approaches, methods, techniques, try to comprehend reality. We will try to understand how science tries to understand the reality and tries to comprehend the reality. And in this particular endeavor, what is the current scenario? To what extent science has been able to realize or comprehend the reality? We will try to pick it up a little later, and I will come back to that particular aspect. At this juncture, let us try to understand that this world in which we live is an illusion. The world in which we live is an illusion. If I say this, probably all of you would accept it. Basically because the great saints and sages and the great philosophers always said, Brahma Satya Jagan Mithya means the only one which is real in this universe is Brahman, whereas everything else in this universe, that is the Jagan, Jagat, is the Mithya. Mithya means it is false. It is an illusion. This is a great statement of Adi Shankara. He repeatedly said in his, deliberations, Brahma Satya Jagan Mithya. This whole world is nothing but a falsity. It is untrue. It is unreal or false. Not so easy for us to understand why the world in which I am living is false. I am existing. I am so and so. I have a name of my own. I live in a place on this earth. I have so many relatives of my own. I have a language of my own. I have so many friends. How come this life that I am leading, or everything to which I am connected in this life, is a falsity, when my existence is a fact? It is a fact because I am existing. Right now, I am delivering a lecture to you people. I am talking. I am thinking. I am deliberating. If such is the case, how come all this becomes untrue? Yes, all this is untrue for few reasons. Basically, because none of these things are absolutely real and none of these things are absolutely unreal. I again emphasize the point that I exist. It is not absolutely real. At the same time, it is not absolutely unreal. So what do I mean? My existence is apparently real. It appears as though I am real, as though it is real. Yes, I am existing. It is apparently real. But one or the other day, this form of mine, or the body which has a form, is going to disappear. When it disappears, it goes back to the elements from where it came out. It disappears. This form, what I am seeing, is not an eternal form. I am bound to die. I did take birth at one point of time, and I'm going to live for a specific period of time, and then I am definitely going to die and disappear. If that is the case, this form is not an eternal form. Probably this body is a temporary shelter which is given to me to live as long as I live in this particular life. The moment the purpose for which I have come over to this plane is over, there is no space for me to stay here. My body dies and gets disintegrated. And once it disintegrates and it dissolves, it gets back to the fundamental elements from where it came, from which it came out, or from what it came out. So please remember, whatever is going to be eternally existing is the truth or real. Whatever comes and goes is unreal. The whole universe is also like that. The whole world is like that. It's an illusion. Because we had several worlds earlier. And if this world completely disappears, there is another world which is going to come up. The current world in which we are living has succeeded the previous world. And the current world is going to become a preceding world when it disappears and a new world comes. Please understand that this world is a skillful construct of our mind. The mind has constructed this whole world around us. J.K. Jiddu Krishnamurti ji used to always say, the mind is a very skillful constructor. And he used to say, the mind is too much with you. And this mind has created a world of its own based on sensory knowledge. Our mind tries to make sense of the world. It gives a constructed picture of the whole world in which we are living. How will it make sense of this world? Mind alone cannot comprehend this world. Mind works along with the sense organs. The sense organs, like what you call eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin, which are the 5 sense organs, keep perceiving a lot of signals from the world. And these sense organs, after receiving the signals, what kind of signals? Maybe the signals related to light when you are talking about eyes, the signal related to sound when I'm talking about ears. So every sense organ keeps receiving a lot of sensory signals from the outer world. And these signals are translated into specific electromagnetic signals by the sense organs. Whenever the light which is reflected from an object enters my eyes through the pupil of my eyes, the light waves fall on the retina. In the retina, you have some very strong vision cells called as rods and cones. These rods and cones which are there in the retina get excited. The moment they get excited, they release some electromagnetic impulses. These electromagnetic impulses travel through a nerve called optic nerve. And through the optic nerve, they reach the cerebrum of the brain or the cortex of the brain. In the brain, there is a vision center. The electromagnetic signals traveling through the optic nerve will reach the vision center, and the language of electromagnetic waves is translated into a particular image of an object. And you perceive and cognize that particular image in your brain. All this happens in a fraction of a second, or in a split second. All these things happen. And the sense organ called eyes constructed an image with the help of the mind, and I am not seeing the object in reality. I am actually perceiving the image created by the light which is passing through my eyes. If you ask me, when I see a person, am I seeing the person in reality? I don't know how that person is. I am seeing the image of that person which has formed in my brain. I really do not know ultimately how that particular person looks. The reality I do not know. Basically because I am really not able to perceive that particular figure of that man without using my eyes, without using my brain, without using my mind. All of them work together. Imagine if I am not able to see the person as he is, and I am able to see the image of that person which is formed in my brain, probably I am constructing my reality. I'll just give you an example here to make you understand the intricate aspect of reality here, physical reality. Instead of I being a human, if I were to be a snake cannot see the spectrum of light that I can see. I see the things using visible light which has a specific spectrum. Within that particular spectrum, if something falls, I am able to see that. I make use of light. But snakes do not have the eyes of the kind that I do have. How will the snake sees the same person? When the snake sees the same person, a thermal image gets formed. It has a sense organ at the tip of its nose from which it receives the signals called thermal signals, and the snake sees a different image of that person which is made of different colors, and it's a thermal image. If a frog sees the same person, the eyes of the frog sees things differently. How will that person appear to frog? Frog is capable of seeing every atom, every photon, every atom, every photon, every molecule, every particle is visible to frog's eyes. That means to say, when frog sees a person, a human being, the human being appears as a huge mass of minute particles which are rolling over each other. So whenever a person appears in front of the frog, frog realizes that person is being made of billions and trillions of small particles. If a whale looks at me or any other person, whale does ultrasound scanning. You know, in the womb of the mother, if there is a fetus growing, the doctor does ultrasound scanning. When ultrasound scanning is done, the shape of that particular fetus, the different features of the fetus are probably perceived by the doctor in the form of a scanned image. That is USG, ultrasonography image, which is nothing but sound waves getting reflected back from the particular matter. So you might have seen the fetus in the womb when ultrasound scanning is done. That is the image for a whale. Whale sees the entire world as ultrasonography images. And frog sees the entire universe as made of small particles, very small particles. And snake sees the same world as thermal images. And as a human being, I see this universe in the form of images that my brain forms when the light passes through my eyes. That means to say, it is the same world, but being perceived by different creatures in different ways. Can I say the world that I am seeing is only real and the world that whale is seeing is unreal? Can I say the world that is perceived by the frog is unreal? It is the same world, but different kinds of images are getting formed in every particular creature. And every creature perceives this particular world in a different way. If I say, perhaps, if hypothetically speaking, if snake knows the language of a human being, and if I tell snake, come on, the world is like this, and I describe the world that I am able to see and comprehend, the snake will laugh at me. Hey, come on, what are you saying? What you are saying is completely absurd. I am seeing the world in a different form. How can it be different to you? So, none of these worlds are real worlds. What I like to say is, the world as it is different from the world as I perceive. So there are two worlds, the world as it is and the world as I perceive. The world I perceive is a constructed reality. Throughout my life, my sense organs keep constructing the reality and keep giving that to me. And I believe that is real. But if I carefully dissect and understand the whole phenomenon of perception, I definitely realize that the world that I am perceiving is probably not the true world. Imagine I can see the visible light within a particular spectrum called as Vibgayar. What is that Vibgayar? Vibgayar are the 7 colors which are present in the sunlight. And that particular spectrum is called as the visible light spectrum. I see all colors between violet to red. If the light is beyond violet, I call it as ultraviolet, and my eyes cannot see that. If the light is beyond red wavelength, I cannot see that particular light, and I call it as infrared. Beyond this ultraviolet and infrared, we have X-rays. X-rays, you have seen the X-ray images of our bones. These X-rays are present in the light. Imagine, hypothetically speaking, God gave me a special privilege, and the privilege is that my eyes are capable of visualizing the X-rays in the light spectrum. If God gives this particular ability to me, what happens is everything in the world would be an X-ray image for me, with a lot of radiolucencies and radio opacities. I see the whole world like a radiologist sees in his X-rays. That means to say, am I seeing an unreal world? No, I am seeing the world, but what I am seeing is a constructed reality because I am given the faculty of seeing the X-rays also. But the world as it is even now unknown to me. What I like to again say here is, please comprehend, contemplate, and understand that everything that I am perceiving in this world is a constructed reality. I live with my own constructions and I die with my own constructions. The world as it is probably unknown to me forever. The world as it is not experienced by us because our sensory organs and mind readily construct a perception of this world and provide that perception to us. They color, they paint the world according to their own whims and fancies. Who will color and who will paint? The sense organs will color and the sense organs will paint the whole world according to their own whims and fancies. As long as we try to understand this world with our mind, we only create illusions. Then, experiencing the world without mind directly might help us to reach the reality. Look, there is a pointer here. The pointer to the truth, the pointer to the reality. Reality cannot be comprehended for your information. My very title is wrong. You cannot comprehend the reality utilizing your sense organs and the mind and the brain. Basically, because this complex, the complex of sense organs plus brain plus mind always creates illusions. You are always under delusion when you depend upon this, because every sense organ tries to comprehend things along with mind in its own way. So the best way to comprehend the world which is as it is to go beyond the sense organs, go beyond the brain, go beyond the mind. This is what we say in theosophy, transcending the three lower planes. What are the lower planes? Physical plane, astral plane, and lower mental plane. These three planes are such planes where we are active with our sense organs, brain, and mind. And once you transcend these lower three planes and reach the higher mental plane and buddhic or intuitive plane and atmic plane, you don't need your sense organs. You don't need your brain, you don't need your mind. Until you silence all these, you cannot transcend the lower three planes at all. That's why when Patanjali spoke about the 8 limbs or Ashtanga Yoga Patha, when Patanjali discussed, he said Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi. The 8 limbs. In these 8 limbs, Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama and Pratyahara, they're all related to the initiation of yogic sadhana. And Pratyahara is a very, very important stage and the middle stage. In Pratyahara, he advised all sense organs should be taken inwards. Sense organs invariably are opening to the outer world. Every moment, every minute, every instance, our sense organs are looking outside, working outside. He said in Pratyahara, like a crab, how it takes all its legs inside, you need to take all your sense organs inwards. When sense organs are taken inwards means the sense organs black out. They become completely inactive. And once the sense organs become totally inactive and get introverted, the outer world and the signals coming from the outer world will completely stop. And when it completely stops, you are not perceiving the outer world, you are enjoying the inner world, and there you don't require the use of sense organs, mind, brain, and all. So please understand, the sense organs, mind, brain are obstacles on the path. And at the same time, they are facilitators on the path. A very paradoxical statement I am giving. Use all these to reach up to the lower mental plane. And beyond that, shed all this. If you shed all this, you are going ahead with higher mental plane, which is the zone of silence. Higher mental plane is a zone of silence and where you have your causal body. And the moment you enter into the higher mental plane, you don't require these lower faculties. And probably that is the stage when the perception is direct. You are directly perceiving the whole world and there are no sense organs, there is no mind and there is no brain. When the perception is direct, probably you are able to comprehend the world as it is. The world as it is, which is unknown to us, will remain unknown to us till we transcend the lower mental plane and arrive at the higher mental plane. That is possible only when you elevate your consciousness to higher mental plane, and that happens invariably, inevitably during meditation. Meditation is the only path through which you can actually comprehend the reality directly. That is a direct perception without sense organs coming in between, without brain and mind coming in between. Until then, what all you are perceiving in this world is a constructed reality. It is an illusion. It just appears to be like that, but in reality what it is, I do not know. A paper in my hand where I have written a lot of things, okay, I can comprehend. All this is happening with my sense organs, brain and mind. I really do not know how it appears when I directly able to perceive this. Okay, please understand there's a distinction between the world as it is. The world as it is called as noumenon. Plato called it as noumenon. The world as it is noumenon. The world I am perceiving is phenomenon. So throughout my life I am seeing the phenomena, but the background noumenon remains unknown to me. Until and unless I elevate my consciousness to a higher level and have a direct perception, noumenon remains unknown to me, and that noumenon is the reality. Phenomenon is unreal. It is the unreality or the non-reality, whatever the way you like to call it. Okay, I'll give you another example to make you understand what is this reality. Modern physicists and modern quantum physicists and quantum mechanics wanted to know what is the reality behind matter. See, we have something called physical reality. What is this physical reality? Everything that is physical, I consider it is existing, and I can very well perceive it. This physical reality is made of matter. Scientists wanted to know the reality behind this matter. What is this matter basically made of? Because our Upanishads keep saying time and again, ekam sat vipra bahuda vadanti. Ekam sat vipra bahuda vadanti means there is only one reality. That is only one. And everything has come out of that one reality, and everything is relatively unreal. What is that one reality behind matter? What is this matter made of? In order to understand what is this matter made of, the scientists started fragmenting the matter. Only when they fragment, they are able to comprehend or understand the truth of that matter. That is the only way science knows. You give anything to a scientist, scientist has a method called as analytical method. What is this analytical method? It is fragmentative method. Fragmenting to the infinity, what we call fragmentation ad infinitum. Fragmentation ad infinitum means he always keeps dividing it to find out ultimately what it is made of. What is the fundamental or the basic stuff which is present in it? So when matter was given to him, he went ahead with the same approach. He started fragmenting it. Let's pick up an example. This is how a physicist will try to find out the reality behind my physical body. What is this physical body made of? When he was asked, yes, physical body is made of matter, absolutely no doubt about it. And this physical body is primarily made of something called organ systems. What are organ systems? Respiratory system, which helps me in breathing. Digestive system, which helps me in digestion. Excretory system, which helps me in pushing out the waste from my body. Neurological system, which helps me in the conduction of signals from one particular organ to another organ, from brain to periphery and from periphery to brain. And I have something called cardiac system, the system which deals with pumping the blood everywhere into the body. So the human body is made of several organ systems working together for a common purpose. What are these organ systems made of? Every organ system is made of tissues. What are the tissues? Epithelial tissue, muscular tissue, nervous tissue, skeletal tissue, cardiac tissue. We have several tissues. And these tissues, connective tissue, these tissues work together for a common purpose. And what is a tissue? Tissue is nothing but a group of cells which work for a common aim or purpose. And what are these tissues made of? Tissues are made of cells. So the scientist went to know, started dissecting to know what is cell made of. He came to know cell has cytoplasm, and in the middle there is a nucleus, and within the nucleus there is a nucleoplasm, and in the nucleoplasm there is DNA or RNA or whatever it is. And he came to know that DNA is the blueprint of our life, and DNA is the governing constituent of my cell. So now he came to DNA and he wanted to know what is this DNA made of, because DNA is the control house of the whole cell. And then he fragmented the DNA. He came to know DNA is majorly made of nitrogen, oxygen, carbon, and hydrogen. These are the four elements which are present in it. So he wanted to know what are these elements made of. He fragmented these elements. One of the simplest element here is hydrogen, which has one proton and one electron, the most simplest atom. He wanted to know what is this hydrogen made of, what is the basic stuff of this hydrogen. And as he started analyzing the hydrogen atom, he realized that 99.999999%, that means to say 99.7 times 9, 7 times 9 followed by 7 nines percent of hydrogen is an empty space. It's a void. And then what is that which is there? In case if everything is a void, that 0.000001%, what is it? He said it is mass. And what is that mass? It is a nucleus of the hydrogen. And electrons do not have any entity at all. They do not have any weight. They do not have any substance. So they wanted to know what is this particular thing made of. What particular thing? This nucleus and proton, what is it made of? So in the particle accelerator, they blasted the proton, because that is the only mass which is there, and the rest is a void. Rest is a void. Atom is 99.99999% void. The only mass is the proton in the nucleus. And when proton was blasted, came small particles called quarks. Each proton gave 3 quarks. They are further small particles. They have mass. And what are these quarks doing inside the proton? The modern physicist in the particle accelerator came to know that these quarks are moving at a speed that is equal to the velocity of light. What is the velocity of light? 3 lakh kilometers per second. A hydrogen atom is so small, infinitesimally small. On the tip of a sewing needle, you can arrange more than 60,000 hydrogen atoms one beside the other. If that is the case, how small is the hydrogen atom? And within that hydrogen atom, 99.99999% is empty. Only 0.000001% is a mass, and that is your proton. And that proton contains three small quarks which are moving at a speed that is equal to that of light. How is it possible in such a small place? But please understand, what I am saying is not a cock and bull story. It is a scientific theory, and it is a truth, and there is a lot of evidence behind it. In the bubble chambers or particle accelerators, they have seen the print of these quarks. They wanted to know what are these quarks made of, because ultimately I want to know what is the reality behind it, behind the matter. So they broke the quarks, they blasted the quarks, and every quark gave rise to three subquarks. And what are these subquarks made of? These subquarks are the fragments of the quark. And what are those subquarks doing there? Those subquarks are again moving with a velocity that is equal to light. So the scientist didn't want to stop there. The scientist wanted to know the ultimate reality, and he blasted the subquark. When subquark was blasted, matter disappeared. Matter completely disappeared. And what happened to matter? Matter disappeared into nothingness. From nothingness, subquarks came. When subquarks joined together, quarks came into existence. When many quarks integrated together, that resulted in the formation of protons and neutrons. With protons and neutrons came atoms. When many atoms joined together, they became molecules. And such molecules of nitrogen, oxygen, hydrogen mixed together to form DNA. And with DNA, a nucleus of the cell, and from the cells, tissues, from tissues, organs, and from organs, organ systems, and from organ systems, the human body. So I discuss the top down to you, and I discuss the bottom up with you. The ultimate conclusion is human body, or for that matter, any substance in this world, is ultimately made of void, ultimately made of nothing. And from nothing, everything came. Probably it's very paradoxical for you to understand, but that's what ultimately the world. Ultimately, what I am, please understand, I am 99.999999% a void, empty space. But do I look like empty space? No, I look like a concrete object. Anybody can touch me. Anybody can talk to me. Anybody can feel that I am denser. Then how come you say I'm a void? Yes, that is a reality, because that's what you are made of. And that's nothingness. Then how nothingness gave rise to this whole body? That is Maya. That is illusion. That is delusion. That's why actually Shankara said, Jagan Mithya Brahma Satya. This whole world which is made of atoms and molecules are primarily made of void. When I talk to you, the meaning is void is speaking to void. When I touch you, void is touching void. But I don't feel like void. I can definitely feel the texture of my touch. Yes, that is true. But ultimate stuff is a void. That is the ultimate reality. That's why in Buddhism they say shunyata. Everything came out of shunyata. Shunyata means emptiness. And according to Buddhism, the whole world, the whole universe emanated from Shunyata. Shunyata giving rise to this illusory world, which is made of different substances. And it looks as though there are several physical realities here. But behind all the physical realities, you have only small particles called atoms. And these atoms are nothing but voids. Look, the ultimate conclusion is the world in which I am looking, the world in which I am working, the world in which I am functioning is completely void. That means to say, it is a world which appears to be there, but in reality, it is all a void. It's all a void. So, what is reality then? Reality is the void, nothingness. And that's why in Shaiva Siddhanta, they say everything came out of a Mahabindu. Bindu means a dot. The whole universe was compressed. The whole volume of the universe was compressed into a small dot, from which the whole universe came out with Big Bang. How to understand this? This universe, which is immeasurable, was compressed into a dot when the universe originated. Is it really possible? Yes, science says it is possible. And that's what your scriptures say. When Mahabindu went into Vispota, Vispota means explosion, the whole universe came out of it. Bhagavad Gita also says same thing. Sri Krishna says, when the universe was created, everything came out of me. And when the universe dissolves, everything will come back to me. So the dot or Mahabindu is nothing but your Krishna. It's nothing but your Allah. Nothing but the Father, Buddhakaya, Shunyata. That is called as unmanifest. And that is called as Avyakta. And that is called as cosmic egg. That is called a state of singularity in science. And that is real. Everything else is a manifested world. And manifested world is a world which appears to be. But that's not the true world. At the same point of time, I conclude with a note. Please, 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 don't think the world that in which you are living is completely, absolutely unreal. What I say is, myself as well the world in which I am living are neither absolutely real nor absolutely unreal. Then what is this? It is relatively real and it is relatively unreal. Rather, it's an apparently real world. And I should understand this is an apparently real world, and the ultimate reality is incomprehensible to me unless and until I transcend the lower three planes and arrive at the higher mental plane and beyond into intuitive and atmic plane, where my consciousness would have reached such a powerful plane where reality can be comprehended directly without sense organs coming in between. With this, I like to conclude my session. And there was a bit of science, a lot of science. And I thought probably our members are able to take up the basic science. And of course, this is very much required for the theosophical members, basically because The second objective of Theosophical Society is to study religion, philosophy, and science together. An integrated study. That is the second objective. Keeping that in mind, I designed this particular deliberation for you. Thank you very much, Mathurji. Thank you very much for giving me an opportunity.
Thank you, brother. Thank you very much. Now we would like to have some questions or comments from the members present here.
Yes, I have a question.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, exactly that. What you discovered, what I like the most is that you told about that X-rays and all. That in case if I would have an X-ray vision, I would see skeletons dancing around me,
Yeah.
and if a person has a normal eye, he would see he would perceive the world as we perceive. So, what is the real substance of the world? Because as a quantum physics researcher, we also find out in the unified field theory that all the forces, all the three and four forces, major forces, are coming from nothing.
Okay.
And same was in wave particle theory, where when we observe the world, it turns into matter, and when we are not observing the world, it turns into wave.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
what are that waves used for?
See, it's a wonderful question what you have asked. I suppose you are Mr. Harpreet, isn't it? Yes. Brother Harpreet, what you are saying is the wave particle theory or the wave particle function of Max Born. Okay. So according to quantum physics, when you get into the bottom of a material stuff, you realize that the particles which are there are in reality not the particles. They appear to be particles. Rather, they are events in time. They are events in time. And the role of observer becomes very, very important there. If you observe, the particle is there. If you don't observe, the particle is not there. It is the consciousness of the observer which will ultimately decide whether the particle is there or not there. It is like this. The dual theory of light, light is both a wave and particle. If you observe the light with a clear-cut mindset, asking a question related to wave theory, it will answer you back saying that it is a wave. And if you ask a question that it's with a particle theory assumption, it will answer you back that saying that it is a particle. So it is all probabilities. So at that particular juncture, when you get into the micro world, all your laws related to macro world will break down. And everything becomes a probability, and you deal with probabilistic theories. And that's how your Heisenberg's theory of uncertainty or law of uncertainty comes into picture. And this wave particle function comes into picture. And at that particular juncture, the science becomes subjective. From objective science, it takes the shape of subjective science. The subjectivity becomes important, and the consciousness of the observer plays a vital role in determining what happens. If observer is absent, it's as good reality is absent. That is what it is. Probably that's actually a question which is related to the extended lecture if I take. An extended lecture if I take, I would be covering that particular that particular component of probability theory and how the whole world is probabilistic rather than deterministic. Okay. So at this juncture, probably I think I have answered your question to an extent. Further, if you want, you can read the books of quantum mechanics and quantum physics.
Yes, absolutely. And really, thank you so much. And I have one last question. So you told about the transcendence. How we can transcend? Is there any particular method or something how we can transcend and perceive the world as it is?
Okay. The only way to perceive the world as it is to transcend the lower mental plane. How will you transcend the lower mental plane? Unless until you silence yourself. Unless until you silence yourself. What all should be silenced? The physical body should be silent. The sense organ should be silent. The brain should be silent. The mind should be silent. No thoughts, no emotions, and you should be at peace with yourself and at peace with the rest of the world. And when you strike a harmony between these three lower planes, you attain the higher plane. The consciousness gets elevated to higher mental, and probably that's when you don't require any sense organs and mind. Hello.
हेलो सर
Hello, sir.
हेलो सर ये बिग बैंग थ्योरी में साइंटिस्ट ने जो बोला कि एटम का विस्फोट हुआ है तो एक्चुअली वो एटम नहीं था वो वाइट बिंदु को ही एटम बोला है क्या
Okay, just a minute, sir. I'll come back to you. Mr. Harpreet, hope you followed me.
Yes, 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 absolutely.
Okay. Okay. And there was another question from Mr. I don't know what is that. Yeah, Mansi Bhagat.
No, this is from Madhavi Sharma from Ujjain.
Okay. From Ujjain. Okay. So, ma'am, your question was something related to Big Bang, correct? See, what was there in the Big Bang, no one knows. No one knows. It is unmanifest according to our secret doctrine. And secret doctrine says, from unmanifest came the whole manifested world. And if you go through the stanzas of Dhyan, the first stanza deals with the mother and the father principle coming out of that unmanifest. But what was there in the unmanifest, even secret doctrine doesn't reveal clearly. And neither scientists know clearly, nor any religion spoke about this. What we can understand is that is a reality, whatever was there. Science said it was state of singularity. That means all multiple states of existence had integrated into one state. It's unidimensional, all dimensions integrated into one single dimension. And what was that? We don't know. And it's beyond comprehension. In light of Asia, there is a wonderful stanza. And the stanza beautifully says, don't try to think about something that is unthinkable. Don't try to understand something which is not understandable at our particular level. See, I will tell you, I will just say that particular, a poem or a verse, whatever you call. In Light of Asia, Edwin Arnold introduces the first sermon. It was the first sermon which was preached by Buddha after enlightenment. The very first sermon of Buddha, what he says is, measure not with words the immeasurable, nor sink the string of thought into the fathomless. Who asks doth err, who answers err, say not. This beautiful sermon clearly says, don't bother about it. What was there in the unmanifest is something which is immeasurable. Don't try to sink a string of thought. That means to say, don't try to comprehend that with your thought. It is not possible. Your thought cannot solve this problem of unmanifest. J.K. wonderfully in his lectures used to say, thought cannot solve any problem because thought itself is the problem. Okay. From the problem, how can you solve the problem? So, nor sink the string of thought into the fathomless. It is fathomless. And who asks that error? Who will ask this question is committing an error. Who answers that will also commit an error. Say not. Say not means keep silent. That's why Buddha never used to answer the questions related to ultimate reality. But he used to say the importance of elevation of consciousness. Okay, never he used to talk anything related to ultimate reality. Comprehending ultimate reality is impossible for us. It has to be experienced by us by transcending the lower planes. And after you experience, you can't explain it because it's beyond words, beyond thoughts. It's something which is probably out of this world, as I say. Hope I have answered the question, sir. Hope I have answered the question. Thank you very much for that question.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Nagesh ji, very beautiful. One word I say.
Yes. Anil ji, you want to say something, Bhavguna ji?
Yes. Nagesh ji, it is very interesting what you said. When they broke the quark, they reached sub-quarks. And after sub-quarks, they broke the sub-quarks, they found nothing.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. They found nothing.
Or was it something which was moving at such a higher speed which they cannot comprehend? Maybe higher than the speed of light.
Yeah, you are giving a pointer to me. I did not take you to the string theory because these lectures are very short. I mean, constrained time is there. I could not go into it. When the subquark was, a string of energy appeared. A string of energy appeared in a different plane. It is not in the physical plane. Probably it is in the astral plane. And that string is nothing but a pulsating string of energy. And multiple strings of that energy integrate together to form subquarks and subquarks to quarks and quarks to atom. That's what we call string theory or superstring theory.
So is energy the ultimate reality?
Yeah, as of now, the quantum mechanics and quantum physicists think that energy is the ultimate reality. But even that energy is there and appears there. And that's where the wave particle theory breaks down, or that's where everything becomes a probability and it is more a fuzzy area. And quantum physics and mechanics are doing a lot of research.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. You have taken me at least nearer to the solution.
So it's all about vibration and all that. String theory.
I am unable to clearly listen to what you are saying. Can you please say it again, sir?
He's saying that if we broke down the subquarks, then we'll land up to the string theory.
String theory, yes. String and superstring theory.
Superstrings as well.
Pardon me, sir?
Superstrings as well.
Yeah. When several strings of that kind join together, they form superstrings. And please go through more literature related to string theory and superstring theory. Okay, that's what is the ultimate thing to which we have come.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Okay, sir. Welcome, sir. And thanks to all the participants for keen listening.
Bye.
Thank you, brother. Is there anyone else who would like to ask a question or give a comment?
सोनाल मुरली जी कुछ कहेंगे? सोनाल जी भी हैं.
Thank you. Nothing at this moment. I think it was explained very well from the science point of view. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Okay. Thank you all.
बहुत अच्छा एक्सप्लेन किया नागेश जी, बहुत अच्छा एक्सप्लेन किया. thank you for aiding us in understanding the scientific terms also. Though I was a science student, but I can understand to an extent. Thank you.
Yes.
Rajiv,
माथुर जी, you would like to announce next time का?
यस, मैं अभी अनाउंस कर दूंगा. ठीक है, नेक्स्ट टाइम हमारा टॉक होगा, ब्रदर ऋषिकेश शरण जी लेंगे और टॉपिक होगा अप्रमाद. अप्रमाद मीन्स प्रमाद से हटना. ठीक है, तो सेम टाइम रहेगा 5 से 6 और ये हमारी रिकॉर्डिंग यूट्यूब पे हो रही है इसकी, तो वो भेज दी जाएगी. अगर किसी ने पूरी तरह ना सुना हो तो सुन सकते हैं. ठीक है राजीव.
Okay, please send that link to me, sir.
Sure, we'll send it to you, sir. Yes.
Definitely नागेश जी आपको भेज.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, and namaste to all of you.
Namaste. We'll close with the prayer.
Okay, sir.
माथुर जी, आप बोलेंगे?
ठीक है. ओम सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः, सर्वे सन्तु निरामया, सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु, मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्. ओम शांति.
शांति शांति शांति.